There you go, kid. That's right.
Here, boy, y'all good.
We have it.
That's where she's.
This is a blessing. Let's not keep ourselves.
Don't worry, wait till he flips out his phone and he starts flipping open all those apps.
I would say that.
The agenda's pretty straightforward.
You better go ahead and have Richard knock on his head so we can all get going.
Here, you want.
1 minute.
Yeah, look at it.
You go, whoa, he can have mine. I'll take my sheet off of it, he can have mine.
Well, if this
Here, I'll take some copies.
Oh, no, we don't need to mess any more paper up. No, we're good. Leave paper there.
You're really good.
I really can. You know how much paper we use? Oh, my gosh.
I'm in the camera business.
That's Earth Day. That's Terrence's contribution to Earth Day.
Yes, the Earth Day. Let's not kill any more trees. Everybody's killing trees right now. Move. Now, this comes from the man who's busted.
It's time.
Oh, this comes from him. Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this time I'll call to order the City Council special call meeting of April 22, 2019. Please stand with us for the invocation. Bow with us, please. Dear God, in Jesus' name, we thank you for this day. Thank you for the beautiful sunshine. Thank you for this time of the year, the celebration that we just concluded yesterday. Thank you for this community. We pray for the citizens of it. Pray for those that are sick and afflicted. Pray for our young people who are fighting disease, that you give them the strength and grant them the healing. Pray for their families, that you give them the direction and the wisdom and the energy that they need to go through this situation. We pray for your guidance as we go through this meeting, that you give us wisdom, knowledge, and discernment in the decisions that need to be considered for our city. We just thank you and praise you for it all. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. This time I will entertain a motion to approve the published agenda of this day's City Council meeting.
Make that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, let it know by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. The agenda is approved. First item is under old business. Item number 1, approve a technical amendment and revision to the City of Temple's Building Standards Ordinance adopted on April 9, 2019, pertaining to the size of the landing at the rear and front entrances of new single-family dwellings and townhouses. Mr. Pilgrim, you have comments to make on that item?
Just very briefly, you all will remember that when we were here on the 9th, you did a building standards ordinance and passed it subject to legal review of the dimensions in number 14 of the building design standards having to do with the dimensions of porches at the front and rear. Now you wanted those done. So we made a minor adjustment to the footages in that paragraph.
Excuse me, that's going to be the last page under that tab.
You're looking at it as design standard number 14. And that's the only minor change, so you would just be tonight adopting that as a technical amendment after legal review.
All right, I entertain a motion. Comment?
Discussion.
Yes, sir.
And I had talked
feet, do they still need to do the 10-by-10 patio at the basement walk-through door? So,
Just, in the memo I sent you, Mr. Pilgrim, on the 18th, I did point out that, here, we talked about situations like, Mr. Walden was talking about, but, so if any of you, in fact, if we go over about 3 pages, you'll see the memo to Mr. Pilgrim, whether or not that needs to be put in.
But it says,
So,
excuse me, but it says the main, what was it? The landing must be approximately at the main rear exterior door exit. You can see the back of those houses in Stagecoach that have the decks. It's like a 2-story house with a deck on the 2nd floor, and then the exit that comes off of the garage. They've just got a pad, a small pad there. Would that be what it looks like? It would have to be one or the other, right?
right,
Based
they
on
would need
this.
a minimum 10-by-10 at one or the other, but what does the other need to be for 4-by-5, I would think? At the basement level door, if they have a 10-by-10 deck at a higher level. Well, we need some proper wording for that.
Those over there, and those over there, I was trying to think, it looks like it's only a small block type thing,
Right, if they have the deck.
if they had a deck. Would that be, I mean, is that clear that they would know that that it would only be the main? Because this says at the main rear exterior door.
And this may be more of a design or even a political question than one for me, but it seems that when I've seen this before, what you typically have with people who have an upper level deck is just a small strip underneath it, so you've got a little concrete there as an entryway. But that the main exit would still be out to the deck. So you wouldn't have, I don't know that you have to have a 10-by-10 deck and then a 10-by-10 pad right under it. But I mean, that's just according to what y'all want.
So if we left it as is, it most likely it would be the deck and then just a pad.
But it's unclear. That it is. Main front exterior, that's 4-by-5.
As it is, you wouldn't have to have anything anywhere else except
If you had that, wherever the main entrance is all you need.
that would be
You would
it.
even need a
You could
small.
go straight out on the dirt coming out of
Yeah.
that, like the backside of those houses over there on Stagecoach. There is a deck up, it's up 2 stories, and then the carport opens out to the back. Is exactly what it looks like. I don't know how they're, can't remember what they look like from the front. I just looked at that when we were talking about this. But what wouldn't matter, it doesn't seem to me that it would matter that would be just a concrete step off, does it? I don't
You
know.
got that, if you
I don't
got
wanna have
on
to
the
do two
the main
decks.
exit, I don't see why it would be necessary to have it. And more than likely, the door entry would probably be under the deck
Under the deck.
where you come out.
At the basement level.
Yeah, but if it's got a basement.
Or ground level, whatever.
Yeah,
whichever
you're
way.
right, you might not even have a basement there.
Okay. So we don't need to specify 4-by-5.
I don't see where it'd be necessary.
And I would add that if, I can't imagine a builder doing that, however, we know that's possible. If a home buyer were to get a home with such a situation where that ground level exit on the back of the house just goes out on the ground, then, they certainly would be, they could request a pad to be poured for them, or they could do it themselves after they make the purchase. But at least they'd have that minimum
Yeah.
10-by-10 up
I
there.
just need to know what to tell them.
Yeah.
Right, and I think one thing that, and maybe we could add a sentence that says that, to clarify what the main exit is, but if you wanted to treat that specific situation, we can just put a sentence in that says, where there is a second level porch, this will be the main exit. And that way you don't have a question about, well, where do I put the 10 by 10 down low or up high? I don't know if that's your confusion as to what would make some sense. maybe.
Reading this, I would say put that 10 to 10 to either one. You could just put a little 4x4 landing out there, and then down at the carport, you could put a 10 by 10 slab,
Right.
which meet the requirement here.
I think that's right. I think, so that's just a matter of what y'all's preference is as to whether you want to specify that or not.
Essentially, what you're thinking, what's going to boil down to, the bigger one is going to be considered the main rear exit, and then the minor one is going to be secondary.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this question came up, this particular builder, they build some decks that do not have the steps going down, so it would not be an exit or an entrance. And the question was, if they've got that 10 by 10 deck there at an upper level, then they still would have to do a 10 by 10 patio at the basement or lower level. Because that would not be an ingress egress.
You say in a situation where they have a deck, but they do not have an entrance off of the
No
deck?
steps.
No steps coming down.
I
And you
see.
see that, so.
Yeah.
And we've got a building that's doing that. So what do they do at the other exit?
Well, with the way it's presently worded, then they have to put in there.
Extend.
But that's just, again, all of these things are subject to whether or not that's what y'all want to provide to do or not. So you can always tweak the language if you feel like that's not what you want. But if it is what you want, then that's how I interpret it.
This is the night that we tweak it.
Right.
So do y'all want, if there's no steps off the 10 by 10 deck, do you still want a 10 by 10 patio? At the basement level or the ground level?
Can they not come back to us though, if they're gonna put a 10 by 10 non-step deck up there, can they not come back to us and ask us to waive this? Like we do everything else?
I mean, they could come and ask for a variance.
That's what I'm asking.
They have to pay for the variance. Go before the plan was over.
I don't think if it was that big a deal, they'd be willing to do that. If they don't have steps down through that, because at some point, you gotta have a line.
So do the steps, so do the steps on the deck make it an entrance and exit? So if there are no, if you can just walk out there, that's not considered an entrance or an exit?
There would not be a main rear exterior door exit. I wouldn't think. Well, you could exit the door, but you couldn't exit the deck.
I agree with your viewpoint on that, because you've got no access to the ground.
That's exactly what's over in Stagecoach in some of those houses, or at least the one I was looking at when thinking about this. That's exactly, there's a deck out there, I have no idea. It looks like it's a 10 by 10 deck. There's no entrance or exits off that deck. And then on the ground level, or which, I don't know how it looks in the front, but there is a garage entrance down there. So based on what you're saying, they'd have to put a 10 by 10 slab at that garage. And is that what we want?
What if we added the wording to whether we say deck with steps or a deck without steps, that the requirement for the front exterior door exit applies also to the rear exit door when there is a deck?
With or without steps.
With or without steps, they would have a minimum 4x5.
As long as they've got the deck. That would work.
I like that.
We just need the proper wording so that
That would still mean that there would have, that there would be, that exit door, there would be a 4x4 something.
4 by 5. 20 square feet, 4 by 5.
4x5, there would
Which
be
is not a
something.
lot.
Right, which seems to me to be reasonable if that's an exit door. I like that. I think that's the way it should be to make it work.
If they don't have the rear deck, they've got to have the 10 by 10.
Correct.
Just so that's understood.
Is that all right, Mr. Pilgrim?
Yes, sir.
All right, so any more discussion? Can we entertain a motion to approve number 14 with that stipulation added?
Can we hear it read back? I'll make the motion if you read it back.
Sure, the stipulation, as I understand it, is if there is a deck, there'll still be a minimum 4x5 pad on the ground, like there would be, like the requirement for the front door exit. If there's no deck, then you have a 10 by 10 that's required.
Concrete patio.
And the deck itself, I'm assuming, is required to be 10 by 10.
Minimum 10 by 10.
Then I make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Mr. Hoffman?
Just a question with the motion that you're making, is that following after approve the technical amendment and the revisions to the building standard ordinance adopted and thus and such? Which you do need, I would assume, to have that language, because that's what you're doing.
Yes, yes, it absolutely does. Yes.
I thought that was it.
You said it a lot better than I did.
Any other discussion?
And we're-
Yes, sir.
We're still going to have this language that would say basically 100 square feet in any configuration. It wouldn't have to be a 10 by 10, right? Okay. Okay.
So that could be a 2 by 20. We took that out because originally we had talked about that, right? About making sure it was
The
7.
minimum was
7.
7 foot width.
Yeah, before we talked, when you got down to 4 by 5, and kind of, looking at that, I was
To
thinking,
hear that.
yeah, you're not likely to have somebody do something 2 feet wide and 7 feet tall.
And this already says 2 by 10 are having a shape of approximate these dimensions. So we
Yes.
just kind of left it open.
Gotcha, okay. All right, I'm still good with it, I'm good to go.
All right, any other discussion?
Is that kind of fire hazard though?
Nope, I asked, and the coach does not require me to have steps on that deck. I didn't read it, I asked, and our coach guy said that it was not required to have steps going down. So I guess if you're there in the house, kids, they'll probably throw you off the deck.
But that's what I'm saying. I mean, I know it's not in our codes, but is it not a fire hazard?
According to George.
Not unless it's over 2 stories high. If it's on the third floor.
Right.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion and second, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, that brings us to new business. Number 1, report on proposed changes in the Carroll County Animal Control Ordinance, discussion and decisions by the Temple City Council concerning any input to the Carroll County Board of Commissioners regarding these proposed changes and concerning an animal control ordinance for the city of Temple. Mr. Osborne?
We'll start us off, and let me, could take one of these and pass it around, and probably, Mr. Pilgrim and I will, just put that in your hands. This is from your code book under the chapter on animal control. But I've given you a memo here. You're familiar with what had to happen in the last 2 or 3 months when Ms. McPherson came to the Little Record and walked with you. We know the county commission had put this off. A few days ago, the county attorney's office had communicated with your city attorney's office. And so we thought we were looking at one thing coming up tonight, but when I called toward the end of the week and talked with Susan Baker, the county clerk, she said the interim chairman of the Board of Commissioners had just pulled that item from the agenda. He said the county commission will not be looking at animal control ordinance until the elections have been held and the new commissioners have been seated. So that will not be considered apparently by the Board of Commissioners based on what I was told, I guess, Thursday by Ms. Mabel. And so with that background, I'll turn it over to Mr. Pilgrim, because he's done research and he can tell you kind of where the city of Temple is and where we need to go with some things on animal control overall.
Well, and I'll just be very brief, as Mr. Osborne said, Carroll County was considering some changes that were basically humane kind of changes to their animal control ordinance in terms of requirements for your shelter, for your pets, tied out, pet malls and things of that nature that a lot of communities are doing now, and that folks consider both a humane treatment of animals issue, but also a safety type of issue. It's my understanding that was pulled just a few days ago, and the county is not considering that at this point, and so they've not asked us to get on board with those things at least at this time. Another thing that came up, however, in my discussion with the county attorney is that you all are a part of an intergovernmental agreement by which the county handles your animal control. And as a part of that intergovernmental agreement, y'all have agreed to adopt a like or similar ordinance to the county for how animal control is done within the city. This would be so that, the obvious purpose is so that the county, when they're enforcing their animal control rules, they have the same rules throughout all the jurisdictions in the county. It's my understanding, and I think this is the case based on reviewing Unicode, that Temple has not adopted a substantial animal control ordinance of the type that the county has. And that would be something we ought to look at doing, just so that we are in keeping with that intergovernmental agreement. I wouldn't say that's something that is an emergency or a 5-alarm fire or anything like that. It's just something that we need to look at doing so that we're upholding our end of the IGA with the county. In reviewing the county's ordinance that they had previously, it's just a fairly standard animal control ordinance. I don't think there's anything unusual in it. Since they're the one enforcing your rules, it probably would just be a reflection of what's already going on anyway. But that's just for y'all's awareness for the future, something we ought to look at adopting.
Question, given that the county is considering changes to their own at this present time, would it be okay for the sake of efficiency that we wait until they finish up with that before we actually make changes to ours?
I can talk to the county attorney about that. I don't know whether you have any more idea, but it sounds like it's not going to come back on for some time.
Probably will be October. And with that one page, Mr. Mayor, you're looking at everything our code book says in terms of animal control. So we don't have anything here on the books apparently that in terms of animal control.
So essentially what we need to do is take the present county ordinance and kind of model ours that it agrees with.
That's right.
Question?
Well, just because whatever the county changes that they're looking at, or as Mr. Pilgrim described, but in terms of the overall animal control ordinance, it would be a very tiny part, not that many changes in terms of the overall ordinance.
That's right.
Mr. Brown.
This deals with the animal itself, but it doesn't deal with the noise created by the animal. Is there any,
We
is
do
there
have in
anything?
our nuisance ordinance, I think that there's one paragraph that basically, when they're talking about loud noises, I think there is something in there concerning barking dogs. We can get that, put that in your boxes. But I think that's the only other mention I remember seeing in the city code related to animals was you can't have chicken houses in the city, generally speaking.
But is it, but we do have something in this city that protects against dogs that bark all night?
I think there's one paragraph in your noise ordinance, Samantha, now, we'll put that in your boxes.
Is that through the codes or through the police department?
I think it's in the nuisance chapter,
Would that come through codes or would that be enforced through the
I think
police
that'd
department?
be a 911 call. But I reserve the right to be wrong, but I think that's.
Yeah, it's a 911 call, and then they send the officers out, and usually the officer, just because I know this from experience, I don't have a dog, but people around me do, get out with a flashlight, and they actually identify the dog that's barking before they go up and knock on your door. And if it's a stray, they'll call somebody, they try to call somebody to come get it if they keep up with it. That's what's
Our
happened
police
before.
department doesn't know that.
Hmm?
Our police department doesn't know that.
I'm sorry.
I think they do.
That.
I think they do.
There's one in here, you can ask.
Do y'all know that?
Is that not how y'all do that?
Normally, when we get a call for an animal that's barking or, off the chain, we'll go out there, identify the animal, and then let animal control know what we have. Then animal control will then enforce any violations on their side.
Yeah, that's right.
I just had a neighbor tell me something different than that, that there was nothing that could be done. And it was not a policeman. Like 3 hours ago.
Do they not know that? Interesting.
If you get information.
Yeah. You, all right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pilgrim. Anything else, Mr. Bowden?
No, sir.
All right. Number 2, report by the bond consultant William Camp of Raymond James and Associates, Inc. on preliminary activities pertaining to the possible refunding of the City of Temple's water bond debt, including contact with the Carroll County Water Authority. Mr. Bill Camp, welcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me sit up here with y'all. Mr. Osborne has circulated some numbers and an email. I'll just kind of go through. It's in tab,
Oh, yes.
one of your tabs. I don't know what it's numbered there. Forgive me.
It's the next tab after the animal control.
Back.
Yeah, get that, plus the memo and the other stuff.
Yeah, I got the memo here. This is what we're looking at.
Right.
Okay.
So, as y'all recall, we need to do something with refinancing the debt. And January of '21 is kind of that go time. So, talking through our options, looking at where rates are now versus where they may go in the future. We discussed late last year moving forward with a refinance, knowing that we will have a penalty that we have to pay if we do it more than about 90 days in advance of 2021, January 1, 2021. We're looking at where rates are now and thinking about long-term implications. That penalty was a cost we're willing to bear. Go ahead and try to jump on lower interest rates, because what we're doing is refinancing, going out over some longer terms in 2021. And your staff, myself, we met with the authority and talked preliminary. We know what their desires are, and your audit is released, and we've run some numbers to show you. Yes, ma'am. I'm gonna wait till these make it around, but if you recall, the current bond issue issued through the Water Authority, I got one more, has a requirement that the system itself generate 1.05 times coverage. Looking at this landscape page, this big first rectangle here, all right, that's your existing debt service. I'm looking at $627,000 a year. That's the annual principal and interest. Again, we got a big bump coming, 4.6 million January 1. This is just the next year's debt service. And in some years, as you can see, we hadn't had 105. 2017's audit comes out and confirms that we have a 121. That's great. All right. So, well, why is this important? Whatever we decide to do, we want to be able to show the authority and their financial advisor, based on historical information, we got ample coverage to make these payments, because they're going to have that same requirement, that 105 coverage, which makes a lot of sense. If you look down at that next box, so I've assumed our new debt service, that's annual principal and interest, is going to be about $360,000. And if you notice, we have better than 2 times coverage based on 17's numbers. And even in our lowest year in 15, we hit that 105. I'm trying to get you down to a point where we can tell them for a fact, based on history, which we have improved, that at the worst, we were hitting our requirement, okay? Now, the numbers that Bill and Ken have given y'all on this tab show some assumptions about sources and uses of funds. This page right here, projected sources and uses. We're making some assumptions. We're making guesses about what is going to be involved with this transaction, but we know how much principal we have to pay off. We know we're going to have a penalty. Last few times I got a quote from the bank, it was around 2%. But the big question that we have of you all is, and this is going back to an October meeting in 2018, October 29, 18. We had budgeted numbers that totaled up to about $1.5 million, the city's funds that have been collected that were for this purpose, this sewer plant. So the idea is to take your cash money that you've dedicated towards this purpose and pay off as much of that debt as we can, so we're left with refinancing a smaller piece. The smaller amount of debt you got means we'll have better coverage. We can play around with interest rate and we can play around with the term, that's the final maturity. The kind of big picture is, this is this proposed budget from 6 months ago, and now we're to a point of, as we move forward with the authority, we want to give them as much information as we can, our plan of attack with projected sources and uses, and schedule of events, how we'd like to proceed with their input, of course, and their blessing. One of the handouts in there was a timetable where you can see all the steps that take place. Obviously, I think would like to, our suggestion would be to move along, and my advice has always been, use your money that's dedicated for this purpose to pay down the loan. So if that number is still, that $1.5 million figure is still feasible and comfortable for the council, that's really what we'd like the blessing on, and to move forward with. We project a bond issue that's going to have a final maturity of about 2032, longer than maybe the original plan was years and years ago. Keep in mind, we've got good coverage. We hem up that excess money and we pay off bonds early on this new financing. So, my coverage is key.
So we can pay off our bonds under the new one without all these penalties.
That would be, that's what we're gonna hope for. That's
Okay.
right. That's the plan of attack. Now, we're gonna have some period of time, I'm sure, where we don't have the ability to prepay. But, the hope would be to have a par call feature. I will say this, I run these numbers assuming 3% for the bonds, and that's a tax exempt rate, you're able to reinvest your money today at about 2.4% on a taxable basis. So if we think rates are going up, I am of the opinion eventually they will, but I've been wrong for a while. You're gonna have dollars that can be either applied to paying the thing off or escrowed, which is just a legal term for paying, segregating money to pay off that thing later. You're in an environment where I think that you'll have options to escrow dollars or prepay early without a penalty.
But we're gonna be stuck at a certain timeline before we can do any of that.
Yes, ma'am, generally speaking, we have to give that new investor some kind of protection, some period of time where they know they're gonna get a certain amount of interest income.
How many years do you think that is
20, 30,
before we can prepay?
before you can prepay, everything is negotiable, can be negotiated. They're gonna want 5 to 7 years, generally speaking. Right? When we do a publicly offered bond issue, it's generally 10. And when we back up and have a 7-year call feature, it costs us something in higher yield. So that's the same, it's gonna apply, the same is gonna apply in this situation. That was another thing, in talking with the authority, our original plan was to go and we discussed having a publicly offered bond issue, and that's not something that they're comfortable signing off on. So, all things considered, it is still, in my opinion, better to do the authority transaction because your coverage requirement will be 105. If you were to move forward on your own and do a water sewer revenue bond issued by the city, the requirement would be higher, like a 120 coverage. So all things considered, I do believe the authority route is still the best tool for y'all's refinance. But before we go spending your money, we just wanted your sign off on that plan, that use of transfers and some fund balance totaling about $1.5 million.
Yes, sir.
And I want to go back to the point that Bill just made, that he and I had talking recently, wanted him to come tonight and make the report. And if you look at the timeline, the original timeline that we gave you a few weeks ago, there was no way we were going to be able to meet that timeline, so we had to delay a little bit till we got everybody in town, or get everybody together. But he's ready, timing seems to be ready. But as he said, before he moves forward, we need to go ahead for here. That's the reason it's on the agenda tonight, so that we can begin to do the preliminary steps to get you in a position to make some decisions.
So you're looking for a motion to proceed?
Mr. Pilgrim, if we're gonna be spending money, I think we probably need them to approve doing something, don't we?
I think so. I mean, I'm assuming at this point that it's just a matter of y'all reaching back out to the authority.
Yes. And whatever the final transaction is, this body sees it and approves it before it's final, and the authority board as well. But these details, I think y'all will probably focus on more than the authority. The authority, I believe, is going to be focused on coverage and us proving that we're taking those steps to keep ample coverage. Yes, sir.
Did you look at the figures amortized through 2030 rather than 32? That should still give us a good debt service ratio and save some.
Yes, sir. And
Save some interest.
it would. You're right. It is. And that's another thing we can talk about. 15 on this coverage table is the sticking point. we've got a real good story to tell about 17. Our new numbers, we have 2 times coverage. If we could sell this bond issue and get $360,000 in your debt service, we have 2 times coverage. I'm trying to play devil's advocate with what would their concern be. Their concern has been coverage. And so you're right. I think depending on interest rate, we might be able to shorten it up a couple of years. The placement market is less transparent than the public markets. And so it's going to have to be see what our options are and negotiate based on rate, based on call feature to get the best deal possible. And what we're looking at now is a plan of attack and some estimates, and there's going to be some details that ultimately are different than these numbers you're looking at. And shorter could happen. And as long as we have coverage and as long as it will get the approval from the authority, then we can look at shortening it up.
We should have a really good debt service ratio on our 2018 audit. If it was 1.21, we should be,
Yes, sir. I'm hoping that we will continue to head in the right direction. Yes, sir. I just don't have anything newer to show you than the 17 audit.
But it still goes back that if we take the 360,000 and they're gonna want us to hold that 5 to 7 years before we can pay it off anyway, we can still save that big chunk of interest at the end of those 6 or 7
True.
years. If we can bank the money that we've been paying and make it a lump sum, correct? Okay.
And also, and I'm just being practical, in the next, it is possible that y'all will have to add some borrowing to the system, right? So that's all the more reason to have your coverage. If you had to replace and repair some facilities associated with water and sewer, you can do it with this excess money every year, the coverage, and use it, your cash money to do things instead of borrow. To the extent that you had to borrow, having a longer term debt service will help you with that next borrowing because payments will be lower and you have more coverage. I just want you to have something that is in place that covers you on all of our possible, well, I shouldn't say, as many possibilities as we can foresee. And I do think eventually there'll be additional financings to layer on top of this one.
I'm a little bit concerned now, and I told Mr. Osborne this morning in the staff meeting about, maybe turning loose $1.5 million to pay on this because we're to the point where we're about to have to replace a sewer pump well.
Yes, sir.
Rosa.
Yep.
And it's going to be, Mr. Osborne says, in excess of $1 million. And I don't want us to get to the point where it's an emergency before we do it. So
Yes, sir.
I want to be sure that we've got funds available for that, even if we had to keep some of this.
Well, exactly. I understand that concern and I hear you. And that's where I'm going to rely on y'all and your staff to help me out figuring, do we want to part with less than $1.5 million? Do we want to come up with more than $1.5 million? I'm going back to a budget item from one of y'all's prior meetings. I was here in October where we looked at that. But you're exactly right. So to the extent that we part with less money, if we still trying to hit that 360 number, we might need to run it out a year or two longer to keep our coverage. You see what I'm saying?
Past 32, you mean?
Well, it's possible. All I'm saying is, the less money we borrow, all things considered, the smaller the debt service is. So the less money we borrow means the more cash we can have. If we shrink that number, we'd have to borrow more to pay off the prior debt. So it's just like squeezing a balloon, you squeeze it here and it pops up here. And I am working for y'all. I'm just looking at the numbers and telling you what I think. And it matters more what you all think.
And to clarify, what I'm hearing and understanding what you're saying, this is the decision ultimately to decide later on down after we have additional information, we can evaluate and weigh things out.
Yes, sir. That's right.
And what we need to do for you tonight is just vote to authorize you to get the process or continue the process.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If you see anything, especially about that $1.5 million figure, that we need to reconsider and relook at, whether it needs to go up, whether it needs to go down, the sooner we know that, the better. Because, you know, authority staff is going to ask for what are the numbers, what do they look like, and so we just want to be prepared to answer their queries.
And I'd still like to see what it would look like with a 2030 layout,
2030. Yes, sir.
if you can do that.
Absolutely.
All right, any other comments or questions for Mr. Kemp? And I would entertain a motion to authorize Mr. Kemp to continue this process for us.
I make the motion, we continue with the process of refinancing this bond with Mr. Kemp, Raymond Kemp.
Second. I'll have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, let it know by saying aye. Any opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I would ask that, Mr. Osborne, that you have Ken get us the numbers for the water department and what our balance and stuff is at the moment, and what we're bringing in, plus our debt service balance right now. So we have those in front of us as this $1.5 million looms out, so we can all kind of look at it.
Mr. Camp, I would anticipate next Monday night at our council committees meeting, this will be a topic of discussion.
That sinking fund that you mentioned, is that the same as the debt service fund?
And y'all, the way it works is, you know what your payments are, and you're putting away, so you've got fixed debt service. So every month you're putting away 1/12 of principal, and every month you're also adding to that 1/6 of the next interest payment. So by the time this thing closes, you'll have, if you close it in July, you have nothing left for interest, because you just made an interest payment. And you'd have half of the principal payment. And if we got more in there than that, or in earnings that's been accumulating, whatever's in there we'll use. This is kind of over and above that sinking fund number.
Anything else for Mr. Camp?
Thank you.
Thank you,
sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 3, consider approving the issuance of a request for proposals for solid waste collection and disposal services in the city of Temple, including providing for the selected waste collection and disposal company to become the exclusive provider of said services within this municipality. Mr. Osborne.
You will go to the next tab. I'm going to try to go through this rather quickly, but I do need to go through it somewhat thoroughly also. As you know, back several weeks ago, you did vote for us to notify Waste Industries that the City of Temple was not going to extend their current 3-year agreement of solid waste collection, transportation, and disposal services. And instead, we would be considering proposals from qualified companies who would respond to our request for proposal RFP. And this new agreement would take effect on July the 1st of this year. I'm hopeful we'll get 3 or 4 proposals. As I think all of you know, Waste Industries pretty well has we'll call it a monopoly in this part of the state. We were contacted by one other company to see what we were going to do, and they've been in touch with me a couple of times. Waste Industries also has been in touch wanting to know when they get the RFP. The main thing I want to do before I turn to the RFP itself is that, as I put down here at the bottom of the first page of my memo, all of us know that that Waste Industries is the sole provider of waste collection services within the city to residential customers who sign up for this service. You do have the situation at this point where a resident can decide to handle this responsibility himself or herself, and as a result, there's an unevenness in the communities because the individuals can decide when and how they go about disposing of their household waste. Waste Industries, of course, is going down all your streets each week, but they are not picking up from all the houses, because some have opted not to participate, not to pay the fee there, but to handle it themselves. That does make you a much less desirable situation than you will find in most communities. In most cities, you do find that residents basically have to be a part of the collection system that the city has contracted for or operates itself. But that's a decision that you have to make, because that will be an integral part of your RFP and will make a big difference in terms of responses you may get. I did attach a survey, a quick survey that Kristen did last week to let you see what several other communities in our area have. The other major thing that we need to look at is, of course, dealing with our commercial and industrial businesses. Now, when I was in Douglasville, at different times, the city the city had its own sanitation department, so we had all residential collections and disposal there were times we did commercial and industrial. We were dealing with the front-end load and containers. There were times that we contracted that out. But as you know, that the city of Temple has virtually no involvement with the commercial, that they generally contract direct, and virtually all of them use Waste Industries. So if Waste Industries ends up being whom you select, and that's a possibility, depends, we won't know till we get the proposals from different companies. If Waste Industries was selected, that would be a matter of kind of a transfer. If we select somebody else, there are businesses and industries that have Waste Industries under contract at this time, and we would need a period of time. Hopefully, we could get something worked out with everybody by the end of the calendar year. Not sure all the intricacies of how that would work, but if we can reach the point, frankly, where we have an exclusive provider of sanitation services for commercial, residential, industrial, that will put us in the strongest position in having the type of operation, I think, that would be beneficial to the city, including from a financial standpoint. As I say, I don't expect that we will have much in the way of response. We do have the RFP ready to go out, tweaking it based on some things that you talk about in a minute. But if you look on the last page of my memo, my hope is that we can go ahead and get the decisions you make tonight. We will get the RFP distributed, if not tomorrow, then on Wednesday. The deadline for receipt of proposals would be 5 p.m. Tuesday, May 21st. So basically, that's going to give companies 3 weeks to respond. Then we would report to you on Thursday, the 23rd, during your series of committee meetings. That's the new date, as you know, for May. final decisions, based on your discussion, will be made during the last month of May. City Council would select a company during the regular voting meeting on Monday, June the 3rd. Service under the new contract will start on Monday, July 1st. And so the mayor read the wording that had been put on the agenda. But the next page after my memo is just the pickup survey that Kristen did, which you can look at. And then I've got a copy of a memo I did back in February that was preliminary to deciding that we would go on the open market to request proposal. But then we get to the draft of the request for proposal document. I'm not going to ask how many of you read it. Hopefully you looked at it. Let me just quickly tell you what it consists of. And we open up, of course, by simply pointing out that we're issuing a request for proposals, identifies where they're located. And we've got about 1,850 residential customers. There are approximately 100 commercial and industrial customers and we're looking at not continuing with the option of them being able to handle their own residentially or contract with whoever they want to from a commercial industrial standpoint. It points out that recyclables is a service that we provide, that we do not collect or dispose of yard waste. Billing services are responsibility of the city governments. Payments are made payable to the city. Our geographic area, got to get approximate square miles. We have approximately 30 miles of streets, excluding I-20, and less than 1 mile is unpaved. Arrangements for disposal of household trash and garbage would be the responsibility of the selected sanitation services company. Payment for said disposal shall be the responsibility of the selected sanitation services company. Each resident would get a 95-gallon cart. You could get a second cart with an extra charge. If you signed up for recycling, now you could make recycling mandatory if you wanted to. I just left it saying that if you wanted to sign up, you could, and you'd be given a 65-gallon cart. Having your cart out by 7 a.m. on your scheduled day of pickup, except for holidays and weather-related problems, we would pick up on the same route each week. All trash and garbage would be placed in a 95-gallon container, not required that the lid fit totally. Only recyclables in the 65-gallon container. We would provide the customer with information as to what could be in the recyclable container. That recyclables, right now, as you know, we do that bi-weekly, and don't see needing to change that at this time. Customers notify our billing clerk any change requested in their services. Billing clerk has responsibility for confirming the change to the customer, notifying the sanitation services customer. Sanitation services company is responsible for all cart maintenance, including delivery of carts. That cart delivers and be made within 3 business days of receipt of the request from the customer. Failure to do so within this time frame will result in a $25 penalty payment to the city of Temple. Where the driver, and of course it's Samantha to tell you, she's constantly getting calls where they miss people, but if the company overlooks the cart, if the curbside does not dispose of that, as scheduled, the company is to provide the service within 48 hours of notification by the billing clerk. Failure to do so would result in a $25 penalty by the city of Temple. That will be a little tougher than we do now because we ask them in terms of picking up. Sometimes they do same day, next day, sometime it may be 2 or 3 days. And of course, the company can document the part was not at curbside when it was supposed to be. The company doesn't have an obligation to service that customer until the next scheduled pickup date. And then we talk about getting away from from being able to do your own, and look at franchise agreements that deals with everybody. Commercial front load service provided to business and industries requiring such service by the company selected by the city of Temple. Said company would be the only provider of such services within the corporate limits of Temple. And then, front load containers range from 2 cubic yards to 8 cubic yards will be serviced on the weekly schedule up to 5 times a week. And there would be they would give us a schedule for cost, depending on what size the containers are and how many times to pick up. RFPs for a 3-year initial agreement, July 1, 2019 to June 30, 2022, can be extended. In response to the RFP, the private company shall set forth the maximum fees it will charge customers during the first full year of the 3-year agreement, as well as any increases it plans to charge during the second full year and the third final year of the agreement. For each customer, the amount is to be identified as a service fee. Said fee increase each July 1 during this agreement is to reflect the annual adjustment based on Table 1 of the Consumer Price Index. So forth. Service fee will be adjusted more than annually due to changes in direct operational costs over which the company has no control. In addition, there could be a fuel surcharge if fuel prices exceed a certain base. That this agreement is subject to the multi-year contractual provisions of OCGA chapter listed. Selected private company required to carry general liability insurance, workers' comp insurance, motor vehicle insurance, property damage insurance, and so forth. Must carry at least the minimum limits of liability, provide us with certificates of insurance. Company is prohibited under this agreement from collecting and disposing of any hazardous waste, so forth. Company selected by the city must show proof of permits as required by law and so forth. In presenting the proposal, the city of Temple, the responding companies to identify the per month cost of each 95-gallon cart provided to the customer, the per month cost of 65-gallon cart provided to the customer, and also the 2-yard container, 4-yard container, 6-yard container, 8-yard container. That companies propose to identify the dollar amount increases, percent increases from 1 year to 2 years of the agreement, and from the second to the third year. Proposals should set forth any additional charges included in each of the 3 years of said agreement. Deadline for us to receive proposals, 5 p.m. Tuesday, May 21st. Council will select the company during the regular voting meeting on Monday, June 3rd. Services under the agreement will start on Monday, July 1st. That's covering a lot of material, but the key things with the RFP, that and a lot of that I just went over is in your current agreement that we have with Waste Industries. The 2 big areas, frankly, are looking at having an exclusive franchise, which, as I say, most places do. And the other is including the requirement basically for us to get involved with the commercial and the industrial. I can tell you that the commercial, if you're looking for how you make your sanitation department, so we're not, right now, this past year we went with $13,000, $15,000 in the red, and that enterprise fund. One way to deal with that is the exclusive franchise. That helps a great deal because you get all your customers, because when that truck goes down the street, every time they got something they don't pick up, that means the per house, that where they do pick up, is, they're losing a little money because they don't pick up from everywhere. And, commercial customers and industrial customers, are where the city would generate a good bit of income to help with our sanitation operations. So that's in a nutshell. I'm open for questions, but I really can't issue the RFP until you decide on those several things.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Bivens?
Yes, I would like to know if you can issue the RFP. You're gonna issue the RFP for them to cover everybody, or are you gonna ask for it two different ways?
I'd like to issue the RFP for them to cover everybody, but that's up to y'all to decide tonight.
Mr. Ball?
Well, when you say exclusive, you're talking about making it mandatory for everybody to use the service?
Yes, sir. That's what most places do. You'll have to go far and wide to find the city that says to residents, you don't have to use our sanitation service.
A lot of people would just take theirs over to the East Johnson Street dump over there and recycling center, because it's closed, so it saves them $12.50 a month, so. But they would still have to pay the $12.50 a month even.
But if they decided to do that, they would still got to pay the fee. If you look on the chart, does the city provide residential services? Yes. Is the garbage service contracted out? We got that. Can citizens choose who picks up their garbage? No. City limits, you have to use a particular company. You got to go a long way to find a city of our size, and that's the way we do it.
Residential,
Go ahead.
but commercial, they don't, a lot of them can choose their own provider.
You got a mixed bag with commercial, and like I say, there's a good possibility the waste industries will end up being the company that you'll sign with. I'm not sure that you have any other proposals we'll get. Hopefully we can get a better arrangement with waste industries with proposal knowing they've got some competition. But they've got a pretty good monopoly in this part of the state because they control the transfer station operations.
Yes, ma'am.
Included in the scope of service, it says residential recycling is at a separate fee. And I could be wrong, but at one time it was free for the citizens, is it?
Still free.
Okay.
That's up to you.
Okay.
We can easily make that
Yeah,
no
free.
cost.
Mr. Wall?
Yes, sir.
Let me run a scenario by you. I've got a front load dumpster on my property that I pay $100 a month for, through the city. And I've got several family members that use it. So if we do this, those family members would have to have their own separate container, I'm assuming, at their address.
Yes.
Yeah.
They live inside the city limits, yes.
I mean,
Even though I'm paying $100 a month for a container, that they,
well, whether or not you want to be providing that container or not, I mean, now, if we were looking at an apartment complex, you look at it as a commercial customer, where you got dumpsters, in terms of, I guess we have to get the attorneys to describe your situation, because basically you own the properties. So whether or not it equates to detached apartment complex or something, I'm not sure.
let me ask you about where Chantel runs over there, they use dumpsters. They're all individually metered, so would each individual meter customer have to pay the fee?
And I think, again, that would be something that, in terms, because that's, basically, if you live in West Shank, you are going to take your garbage out to the dumpster. And it's a community dumpster. And you put it in there, which is similar to what you're talking about that you've got. That would be something that needs to get the attorneys to clarify for us, I think. Now, I know that, again, in Douglasville, I know we had apartment complexes that we treated as commercial customers, for example. And so,
So if I move my container from one side of the road to the other side, then I could be probably considered a community container. I'm trying to clarify. Thank you.
Anything else? Questions or comments? All right, so what's being sought after tonight is either to take action to provide for the Selective Waste Collection Disposal Company to become the exclusive provider of said services within the city of Temple. I would entertain a motion.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Did I miss it? How many customers
1,800 something, 1,856 or something.
now that are getting the sewage, getting the garbage pickup? Currently, we have 1,800 getting the garbage pickup now.
I don't know about getting the garbage picked up. I thought that was the number of people that could be getting the
it's
garbage
less than
picked
that.
up.
Because
Yes.
that's you got your water meters is about 1,850, so,
So we'd be increasing basically from how many?
we'll have to get that figure. I don't have that figure tonight, but, we know how many customers we've got, but what the percentage is. I think that was one blank I had in there, so we filled in.
Trying to figure out how many people are not getting. Is it a significant number?
It's significant enough that we paid $13,000.
I think what we have is a combination of residences and businesses who are contracting. One, either they're contracting with Waste Industries around the city of Temple, meaning they are not going through our offices to obtain their contract services, and thus we get cut out. Or they are contracting with other waste collection companies outside Waste Industries, and they're paying directly to them.
Or they're taking it to the dumpster?
Now, the other consideration I guess you could have, given the circumstances presented by Councilman Walden, is whether or not we need to get some of those details clarified before taking action, to define how to make it exclusive and how the charging would be done, given apartment complexes or
Do we have time to do that?
multifamily.
Well, I think this, we can go ahead with RFP or whatever y'all decide, because we know that we will have commercial rates that they will be quoted. So if it was decided that Mr. Walden's operation would qualify for to be able to have a brief collection point, that would fit under the commercial, and you in a sense are doing part of that. I mean, you're paying a rate for the dumpster.
Yeah, the commercial rate.
Paying the commercial rate. Now, I'm not sitting here saying what Mr. Walden's costs would be different in the future than what he's paying now, but the process or the categorization of what he has now could be continued if this commercial customer. Same would be true, like I say, with the apartment complex, and the difference would be basically, rather than having individuals with their own containers that they dispose of, that they're taking to a group facility.
So what you're saying is those individual accounts falling under that circumstance would be, that charge would not be assessed.
I think that then we'd have to decide what the charge is. Like I say,
Gotcha.
going back to what Mr. Walden said, right now, he's paying a commercial rate for a dumpster. Now, assuming that he would be able to continue that, because of the common ownership of the properties, and like I say, you have to decide how you identify that. It's almost like detached apartments, in a sense, that you would still have a dumpster. What the fee on that dumpster would be, that would be learned through the RFP.
So basically, we just need to vote to let him go ahead and do it, and let the attorneys make sure that we've got our wording right, and then we can decipher as we get our numbers in here, how we're gonna separate it out, if it's commercial, if it's per water meter, because we've got it both ways right now, correct?
And you've got, for example, with the apartment complexes, generally, you're gonna find apartment complexes operating with dumpsters rather than, you don't have people from each apartment taking a separate cart after we picked up. They dump that cart into a dumpster, and that's what Mr. Walden's got in his operation.
All right. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion by council to provide for the Selected Waste Collection and Disposal Company to become the exclusive provider of said services within the city of Temple.
I make a motion, we go ahead with the RFP to see what we get, go ahead and see what kind of prices we get, because we know what we're paying now, so at least we have something to compare it to. And then we can always go back to the attorney for the wording. Is that not correct?
It is.
Okay.
But we're seeking pricing based on that collection company being the exclusive provider within the city. All right.
Make my motion, that's exactly right.
All right. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion further? All in favor, let me know by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Next, we have an executive session to consider the appointment of a new City of Temple Public Works Director. Do I hear a motion that we go into executive session?
Make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, let me know by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. Now, should we stipulate that it is possible that we have a voting action after? Yes. All right. It is potentially possible for a
We did.
We do have questions.
Well, at least I guess we'll leave it up for potential.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't have to cut grass, but I had all the shade.
Kristen has a sheet that we have to do.
Don, you think that is?
Be an executive session. Check the box on it.
Yeah, I'm not,
Kristen reminded you of the executive session affidavits.
She told me that either the attorney would take those or I'll be there.
Right, the affidavit is something that's an official document we have to sign. Okay.
see, you think, yeah, call and see if she's got, even if we found one that we've already used, that would let you see and we could,
Email it. 1 second.
got these parts. I don't really hear what you think about this waste industry.
I don't know if I
You know,
will.
we have to issue.
Yeah, well, waste industries, as you know, I mean, they got a monopoly. Yeah, I mean, they got, as I talked, I don't know if you know Monica Mosley, you know, and Monica had run it for years, and I asked her about it, and she said, you know, we can't compete because we can pick it up, where are we gonna take it? Anyway. Can you say exactly that? Yeah, and I've got, I do have one company. Okay, we have one company, Waste Management. They were just beginning to operate, they're just in Georgia. And so they're looking at the challenge cost. I'll send you that.
Ours is January 11th.
Yeah, I get it, Pete.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You went to call Chris and see.
Next to the train.
What's that now?
Steve Hall, what are you doing? Say. What about it? I don't know. Paige talks to her more than I do. Paige talks to her more than I do. I talk to her, you know, if she's coming through town or whatever. How's Abby's game going? Oh. All right. Does anybody know? Is the guy back? I don't know. That's weird. Does she care? Yeah, I know. I mean, that's the only thing you talk to. I don't know it. Yeah, 'cause that's a rare thing, isn't it?
trip, it's just out there. It's like 20 minutes. Then you got Vern Smallwood's place, where the house went down the back of there, because you went down the house with all the cars in the front. I reached out to all his relatives, and all his relatives said they don't know. Yeah, you can look at them, you use that Lexus Nexus stuff to track people down. Sure, I mean, his sister, cousin, everybody. Nobody knows who he is. And so until I get the order, until I can get the ordinance rewrote, we can't go in there and clean it up. Almost like a seizure of property.
I see them starting to clear out Rome Street there, that's so good.
Yeah, Lakeside. Oh, yeah, that's, Georgetown's home.
Yep.
The building that one, the good ones are building out of,
This is Ziggs.
Brady,
Brandon, sure.
Brady on Cool Springs.
How far along they got up there? What's that?
It's just cleaned it up. You know, knocked all the sewer tap, water tap, things like that. And then they're fixing up the stuff that everything down there, they knock down, and like those and things like that. But this summer,
I think a lot will clear out. That's what I've been on for years.
they'll bring them roll and roll ups and having. What's gonna be bad is the traffic, there's probably 60 home county, and that traffic is just gonna be coming
The
out.
school trip up there, too.
Yep. You have that back road going up to, is it Holder? It goes up, back road goes up, and the front road goes off to Rome. You know what, that's 16 families, about 2 cars apiece. They're gonna be stop light. You can see the stop light going in there, across the tracks right there, phone shop, over the tracks.
Fish shops and wood shops in there.
How it works, but gonna be something. And then you got there's one on the other side of Boulder, on the opposite side of the other side of subdivision, really about 200 starts. And then all of them have to come down Boulder, so take that in, and they're gonna have to shut that, so they don't go to school, all the rooms. So, we're gonna end up with 300 new homes coming down Long Street. And a lot of these things we get out.
Well, I think it's good to see this grow.
Right now, so we're on the Bailey Hill, on Bellevue Hills, Windmill Park. All the food shelves, on the side of the highway, all drain to one lift station. And then, so that's gonna have to be used up. But then you're gonna have cool springs, Bailey Hills, all coming down that way. And that's in a certain point, traveling down Lily, and trying to get on Interstate from there. And sometimes that puts you to sleep.
Now, you know, as far as business wise, I think that's going to be. They're really fun, good.
Yeah, and then there's something also. Something like that when you call it, that high.
The restaurant or?
No, it's a short.
We clear all that out from buildings?
It's a store or something. I don't want to say Walmart, but it's something.
I hope I'm wrong.
Well, it's not Walmart, but it's something similar. you ever go back inside that land down there, it's just, got a couple high hills and then beach down there. So, how do you feel that in, the level of law, and the king of the early years? But now across the interstate. He owns like 80 acres on both sides of the road. And then here is the industry going on the other side of Black Lake.
Behind Jennison?
Somewhere right in there. And the city's gonna get it. So now you're gonna have that coming from that way.
Or they put in there,
I just know it's something big, something big. Because,
well, it won't 17 right back there.
don't know if it's that, but it's a big, big. We're at, we're in the top three. We're doing all around, we're in the top three of the finals. Whatever it is big. And we count that one. That one is good. This place would be.
From city, on the city.
Look at them all down there. Yep. You know, you have to be looking down the road. They weren't answering. Now, industry, I think, something like not a lot from there.
It's plain good, that's most important.
All right. I would entertain a motion for us to resume normal.
Make a motion, we resume normal meeting.
I second.
All in favor, let it know by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. All right, there's no action to be taken relative to executive session, so that brings us to closing comments. Mr. Wallace?
None.
Ms. Miller?
None.
Mr. Bracknell? Ms. Bivens?
None, thank you.
Mr. Wall? I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion we adjourn.
All in favor, let it know by saying aye.